Welcome back. This is episode 15, right? So today we're going to be looking at document object model. That is DOM. So all the nonsense we've been doing all this while, this is it means we are getting very close. We are getting very close to what you're going to like. And it doesn't get easier, you know. The more you go up the ladder, the tougher it becomes. But the more nice it becomes also. So DOM, document object model. Let's quickly read through this. The HTML DOM is a standard object model and programming interface for HTML. The document object model, or DOM for short, represents an HTML document as a network of connected nodes that form a tree-like structure. All right. On every web page, the document object gives us ways of accessing and changing the DOM. The DOM node has properties that let us traverse the DOM like a tree. Parent node, child nodes, first child, and so on. So all we'll be doing, so from now henceforth, we will no longer use console. We will no longer use console. We are going to stick with DOM, the document object model. And that means we are going to, this is where we start combining HTML and JavaScript together. Now we've done we've done HTML before, we've done CSS. We are currently doing JavaScript. We are going to combine the three together using DOM, right? So this is going to be an interesting part. It's going to be very interesting. So I'm going to create a folder. I'll call it DOM. Inside of my index file, we're already getting to the end of the class. Script.js. Right here, my title, call it DOM. Yeah, I call it script. So combine that together. All right. Done. Oof. Okay, so we should play with the document.body, the document.body.parent, no, give us HTML. So you can just look at these things and paste it in your VS Code and see what it's going to give to you, right? All right, so let us get started with the DOM. I don't know, I'm so happy with the DOM. So you should take note. We can select any element here, any HTML element using JavaScript. We can use JavaScript to select any element here. We can manipulate the elements we have right here. All right. So let's do something with the body now. You can say what should we do with the body? I can say let body equals not that starting with that yet. I say equals documents dot dot so I can say dot body. So what am I trying to say? This document, and we have started though. This document represents this whole document here, this whole file, everything from the beginning to the top, and from the top to the bottom. All right. So when we say document, everything behaves like a node. So this is document.html, document.head, document.type, document.body. Everything behaves like a node, right? So right now we're saying the document. Oh, this is so interesting. You've done object, right? So look at this as an object. So the document is the object, while every other thing inside the document is a property. Do you get that? Every other thing inside the object is what? Is a property. So inside this document, so we are not saying document dot body because we want to access this HTML body. So what we will now do, we can then say body um, dot. So if I want to add elements inside the body, I can simply use what? Inner HTML. So I'm saying body dot inner HTML. Then I can put hello world inside it. H1. You remember H1 in HTML. Then sorry, we have that refresh. That's hello world. That's it. I can add something else. I can say we have a paragraph. This is a simple JavaScript example that modifies the DOM. You can see we started combining JavaScript and HTML. That's why you said when you are learning, you start with HTML. From HTML, you CSS, then JavaScript. Though you can learn them separately, individually, or maybe JavaScript on its own, but it's always best to start from HTML. Okay, so you can see document the body. But this is just an explanation, just to tell you that everything in HTML is a node, and JavaScript accesses them as an object. So it sees everything inside the document as a property. That's why it uses document dot this, document dot that. All right. So you can see how we could manipulate the body. We can even do something else. Don't worry. I don't want us to go to. Okay, no, there is nothing too bad in that. I can say body dot style dot background color. Give it this color. You can see it has changed the color. All right, but this is not the major thing we want to look at. So I'm just going to comment this out. All right. So what we're gonna do right now, thinking of what we can actually do here. Hmm. Should we just follow what we have here? So it becomes quite straightforward. So let's say we have this thing here, quiz up inside our HTML. All right, quiz container. So I'll copy this. I'll come to my JavaScript. Okay, so using get element by ID. Why didn't I start this with let? Okay, so I told you that everything is a property or method. Yeah, because document is an object. So everything inside the object is property or method. So we're using a method called get element by ID. So whenever you want to select an element that has an ID, okay, in JavaScript you use get document or get element by ID. So this is going to select this particular element, the quiz app. So we can do anything we want with that. All right. So let's update the HTML file. We have this. I'm copying this. It's that's H1, right? Okay. Quiz container. Let me copy everything like this. Let me copy it well. Copy this other part. All right, so let's check. What do we have there? Refresh. So say this is quiz up. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. All right. So if you want to get this particular ID, we've done it here. We say, oh, let quiz container equals document.get element by ID quiz container. That's how to get an ID. And you can say, what do you want to do with it? Okay, so let's just play around with it. I can just say, so these are still basic things you can do with CSS, but just trying to show you what you can do with that. Style, the background color. Or should we change the background color or the color? Let me even look at how it looks like. All right. So whenever you're using mixing it. Whenever you're using CSS in JavaScript, take note of something. You have to first declare it that you are using a style, that's CSS. Use style to represent CSS. And the property in CSS is what? In CSS, it's typed like this, background hyphen color. So any property in CSS that has an hyphen, okay, any property in CSS that has an hyphen, in JavaScript, it will be converted to camel case because this is going to show up as an error. It's going to cause an error. So instead of using background hyphen color, you convert it to a camel case. So that is why whenever we write background color, we use what? A camel case in JavaScript. All right. Then the value of the background color is this. You can just type blue, red, or you can put hexadecimal code, which is this there. So refresh. So you can see we've been able to add background color to the quiz container using the get element by ID. All right, so let's look at another way of accessing our DOM. We can also use the class names to access the elements. So this time around, we're using get elements by class name. So if you don't want to just use the ID, or let's say the other things you want to call this question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and they all have the same class name, then we can use get elements by class name. Take note of this. When we did get element by ID. We use what element, but in that of class name, it is elements because you are getting more than one class name. So what's the class name here? It's called what? Input class. Input class. So I'll just say let input class equals what? Input class. So what do you want to do with the input class? Okay, we can say let's get the value, or let's assign what's the value? Is there a value to it here? Okay, value A, B, C. What did they try doing here? Okay, so we are trying to access the value. That means we still need to do a bit of console, yeah, just to see the values, right? So now, how do you access the values of these guys? It's quite easy. Uh, this comes as an array. This is when you use get element by class name. It comes what as an array. So I thought we are not going to use console.log, but I just want to show you something here. Input class. So refresh. I'm going to inspect console. You can see HTML collection. You can see it comes as an array. This comes as an array 0, 1, 2, 3. All right. So if you look at this, as I'm hovering over this, you can check the documents here. You can see that's the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one. You can see. So we've selected all this. So if I call 0, it's going to pick the first one, 1, the second one. So you can see that if you don't have the knowledge of array, you might have trouble understanding this. This starts from what? 0. And that's how array behaves. Array starts from 0. Okay? So don't worry yourself about that. So I can say, let me get the value on the first one. I say 0. Okay, so I say 0 dot value before I even add the value. If I just say 0, it's going to give me just 0 here. You can see it gave me this input field. Look at this input field now. Type radio, quiz radio, input class, value A. So check our HTML. What do you have here? Value A, question 1. Value A. Okay, that's for the question 1. If I want to get the value, which is A, what am I going to do? We said everything is what? It's a property. So I will just say dot value, which is going to give me what? The first value in this list. You can see what's the value. It gave me A. If I want to access question 3, the value for this question 3, it's quite simple. I can simply do the same thing. I'll change this to 2. Refresh. So it gave me what? C. That's what for question 3. Remember that everything starts from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. All right. So check our HTML here. 0, 1, 2, 3. And I called 2. That is 0, 1, 2. So the value should be C. And what did we get here? We got C. Okay. So that's that. The other things I can do here, but I want to keep it simple, play around with it, understand it. Okay, so I will come back out again. I will tell you this. When you are typing get element by class name, always note that the element is in plural, while that of ID is just element. Because when you are using get element by ID, it comes as it doesn't come as an array. Unlike class name, it comes as an array because we are expected to have only one ID. Okay, it's expected that we have only one ID. Why class name? We can have multiple class names. That's why class name comes as an array. I hope that is understood. There are other ways of accessing elements. We can also use what get elements by tag name. Okay, it's just like our HTML or our CSS. In CSS, instead of using get element by ID, you are going to use hash. In CSS, instead of using get elements by class name, you use dot, right? Then in CSS, instead of you using the tag name, which is P, H1, H2, or div, you simply do what? You simply use the you usually use get elements by tag name. And the tag name we want to make use of is what? Input. So you see, if you don't have the understanding of CSS, you are likely to struggle with some of these things. Because once you understand get element by ID, that in CSS use hash, in JavaScript, this is what you use. It becomes so easy for you. So now we'll just do the same thing we did there. Input tag 0 value. Let's do the same thing. Input tag 2 value. So we should get the same answer. So refresh. You can see AC. And we used get elements by class name here. Why here we use get elements by tag name. You see. So depending on what you want to do, just the way you do it in CSS, depending on what you want to achieve or do, use the ID or use the class or use the tag name or any other thing. All right, so let's look at query selector. So the way query selector works, okay, query selector accepts a lot of things. Query selector works with ID. It works with ID. It works with class name. It works with tag name. It works with anything. So this guy is like an ashewu. Pardon me. So that's it. It works with anything. So you say document or query selector. I don't want to use MP. We can use MP, but let's even start with the class. I can say quiz container. If I put quiz container, I'll just say quiz container. I'll just say quiz container 2. All right. So what is it going to do? So take note, the way it works, this is the way it works. In CSS, use hash. So whenever you're using query selector, you're going to access it almost like the way you do it in CSS. So whenever you use the query selector, just say hash quiz container. Look, this quiz container is an ID, right? Quiz container is an ID. That is why you must access it with hash. All right. So refresh. So we have our div here. You can see div ID quiz container. Remember, because we assign this quiz container does type of background, that is why we are having this inline CSS here. So if I should comment it out, If I should comment it out and refresh, we are going to see just id div container. You can see everything inside. So that's for query selector. We can still use the query selector. So now we are using class. You can see it's still the same query selector. We used hash to get the ID. We used dot to get the class. So whenever you use query selector, just this query selector, and use it with a class, a tag, or anything, what happens is that it's going to pick the first one. You can see this input class, we have multiple ones here. You can see we have multiple input classes. So, well, for this query selector, what it does is it's going to pick the first element with the class input class. So you just say first input dot value, refresh A. So it's going to select the first one. That's how it works. And I don't okay, coming. We can do the same thing for input tag. It will give you the same result. All right, because we are calling the input, which is and remember we can we can use descendant selector, the anything we use in CSS, we can use it with this query selector. You get so let's use maybe a descendant selector. What can we do with this? Okay, I can say quiz container h1. Okay, we can use descendant selector there. I'll call this header. So I'll query selector, I'll just say hash quiz container. So this is the descendant selector. It works here also. Header. Or let me even just, you can console, okay. Let me just give it a color. I'll just say header dot style dot color. Let's say blue. Oops. What happened though? Dot style dot color. Refresh. Okay, so we have what? Color blue. So you can see how powerful the query selector is. Then the last one we're going to look at. So don't forget that this thing, or everything we do in CSS, we can also do it inside this query selector. So there is this last one, which is using query selector all. Remember that when we used query selector, we said it only access the first element. But when you use query selector all, this is going to access all the elements. So this will access what? All the elements. So I can just say this. So this will access all elements with class inputs. So this is quite straightforward. So node list. So you can see it behaved just like the get element by class name. Quite interesting, right? So you are going to be using all these, the get element by ID, class name. So study them very well, understand them. It's quite simple. When you say ID, you are selecting an ID. Class name, you are selecting a class. Tag name, you are selecting a tag. Query selector, you are selecting the first element of what you are selecting. Then make sure you use the CSS symbols, or what am I going to call it? All right, I'll stick with that. Then if you want to select everything associated with what you are calling, you use query selector all. I think that's quite simple and straightforward. So this is the DOM tree diagram. You can simply look at it to understand. Document root, it access HTML, the head.html dot head dot body, then dot title, dot element, and stuff like that. So that's it. Right now, let's look at something else. How do we get the attributes of an element? So in HTML, you still remember what we call attributes. Type is an attribute, name is an attribute, class is an attribute, value is an attribute. All right, so let's look at the attributes. We can say, what if we want to change it from a radio button to a checkbox? We don't want to use radio button again, we want to use checkbox. How are we going to achieve that? So let's go into our JavaScript. We've selected all these before. Input class. So let's look at where we selected it. Get elements by class name. So I'll pick this, or let me even use this one that is closer to us. I can use any of the two. So let me just use this one that is closer to us. Input, all inputs. So I can just say all inputs dot for each. Okay. So because you remember our for each that we did in loop. I think we did it under loop. They did it here. It's a for each. Okay, remember the for each that we did. So if you have forgotten for each, so it's better you go back to the video, we watch it, understand it very well, and you come back to the DOM. So all inputs dot for each input index. So because this behaves like an array, that means we can iterate it, we can loop through it. All right. So we can now say this input, then we're going to call the type. No. So okay, so let me mix everything up. We are trying to set attributes. Okay, we are setting attributes. So there's something called what? Get and set attributes. Okay, so before you use the set attributes, let me just teach you how to use the set attribute. So I'll just say set attributes. Set attributes. So if you want to use set attribute, this is how to use it. Input.set attribute. What attribute do you want to set? You want to set the type. So type. I want to change it to checkbox. So for each, it's going to loop through all the elements. The first one, pick the type, change it to checkbox. Second one, change it to checkbox. So before I refresh, I will say, let us inspect what we have here. You look at it. Type is what? Radio. Type is what? Radio. Type is radio. type is radio. So let's refresh so we can see the changes we've made. So the type has changed to checkbox. Type, checkbox. Type, checkbox. So you can see now the type has changed to checkbox. So what did we use? We used a method called set attribute. All right, so let me teach you how to use get attribute. You can say we want to get the attribute of, we say value is also an attribute, right? So we can get all these values A, B, C, D. Right here, I can just say it's better we log it. I can say input dot get attribute. So the attribute we want to access is value. So that's how to get attributes. So this attribute, I can just put it inside the log. Console.log get attribute. All right. So you're accessing the value attribute of each input element. You'll refresh, check the console. You can see A, B, C, D. So it's accessing each of the value. So that's how you get attributes. So that's it. So please understand all this very well. I'm just making it very simple because later we'll make use of all these things. All right, we'll make use of them, especially in our project, our JavaScript project. What's next after this? So what next we're gonna do? We want to look at how to create new elements. Creating new elements. All right. So let's look at this. Item 1, item 2, item 3. Yeah. What do I have here? Refresh item. So creating new element. I'll come here. So creating new element. I'll just say let. All right. So what we want to do here is we want to add one more item to this. Right. We want to add one more item. So I'll simply come here. I'll say new list. Take note of something. I've always been saying that whenever you're using a variable, you should stick to a particular one. Use camel case or underscore. And it's because I'm copying this. I copied most of this information from the document I'm using. That is why I'm using camel case here. But, I prefer using underscore. So if I'm going to be doing a project, everything is going to be underscore. So please just take note of that. And sorry for mixing it up for you. So I just prefer using the underscore. So we want to create new elements. So we already have UL. What we want to create is LI. So I'm going to say LI, not UL. So document.createElement LI. That has been created. So the next thing is let's call this ID items. And I'll come here. I'll say let items equals. Let me do this at the top. Document.get element by ID. You can see what we learned at the top. We're already using it here now. So anything I've taught you and I'm still teaching you are going to be useful. So yeah, I'm going to say remember I've added two new things here, or three. The first one is this create element method. We use this to create element. So instead of we doing li something here, we can simply create the element from our JavaScript. All right. I'm trying to remember what project did I do that I created elements? I think it was okay, that was at work. Okay, well, I think when I'm done with this, I will show you. I think I did something like that on Medium. So look at this. We've used inner HTML here before. Where did we use inner HTML? Okay, yeah, we use inner HTML. And right here, we're using text content. We can also use inner text. All right. So I'll tell you the difference between inner text and inner HTML. The basic difference is that for inner HTML, it can accept HTML elements. Whenever I use inner HTML, that means it can accept text and also accept HTML elements. So it's going to format it the same way HTML is going to format it. That's for inner HTML. But when you want to use just a text, you don't want to include HTML elements. That's when you can use inner text. So you can either use inner text or text content. They both work. All right. So that's that. So when you are done creating the element, you assign value to the element. Then when you create the element, it's just floating. It's nowhere. That is why you need to append it or prepend it, any of the two. You can append or prepend. That's why you have to append it to an existing element. So what existing element do we have? We have items. Items is an existing element, which is UI, ID items. So you append it to an existing element. That's a new list appended to items. So you refresh and check. Oops, there's an error. So what error message is this? Uncall type error cannot read properties of null append child. All right, so let's look at what we did wrong here. Items dot append child. Append child. So let's look at what we did here. So console.log. Okay. So I think the major problem is getting an ID. Let's check our HTML items, right? Because the error here is saying that cannot read properties of null. What it's telling us is that the ID that we are trying to get here is non-existent, doesn't exist. So look at, we have the items here. Oops. I think the problem here is this space. Okay, so it was when we copied and pasted, that was the problem. So let's remove the space and let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, that's worked. So it was because of the space here. So you have to take note of things like this. And you must know how to debug. It's just simple. Said uncaught error. Um, and trying to uh, call an object null or something like that. So that's it. Okay, so we append item new list. So see, the item has been appended, new item. So okay, let me just call this new item one, new item two. So let me refresh. You can see it shows what new item one. If I comment this out and show this, zero new item two, which is still the same thing. That's why I'm telling you that inner text or text content works fine. You can see we have a new item two. So you can decide to use any of the two. But there is another thing we can do. All right, which is you creating the text node, right? All right, so we're creating the text node. Instead of using inner text or text contents, I think this is just a long journey. But let's just, it's a long journey. You can say new text, document.create new text node. Then we now append, so you can say document.create text node, item text away. So you now append this text to the new list. Then you append the new list to the items. Okay, so refresh. We still have it. We have a new item 3. So you can either use this first method, second method, or the third one. Then we can also do something else. We can say items dot prepend. We can prepend the list. If we don't want to add it to the end of the list, we can add it to the beginning of the list. So let me comment this out. Refresh. So that's what new item 3. It's added it to the first part, to the beginning of the item rather. Oof. And there's also what we call the insert before. Okay, so items insert before new list, items dot children. So children means all the elements inside the items. Okay, so when you say one, that means we want to add it after item one. So let me comment out the prepend so we can see what insert before is doing. Insert before. Okay, so we can play around with it. You can say children 2, fresh. Okay, so I think there's insert after. I think I'm already mixing everything up. Let's do insert after items. We can replace items dot insert after. So let's see, insert after. So, okay, I think I think they sat after I thought, okay, maybe that was jQuery. I think we'll just stop here. Just stop here. Okay, so that's it. Let's look at other stuff. Changing the CSS of an element. We've already done this. Where we did quiz style dot background color equals so you can use any CSS property just the way they use text align center. You can do margin left, margin right, any other thing you want to do there. Text decoration. So I think we're done with that. So let's look at how we can get information about the window. It's a browser object model window object. So we have DOM, which is for the document object, while we have BOM, which is for the browser object. So we can get a lot of information from the browser. Okay. So how do we do that? I can simply come here, say BOM. Oh, sorry, let me even get this browser object model. Okay. But before we start looking at the window is an object. So that means all the properties of an object would be found in this window. So instead of within dot this dot that, we can simply use window. Then you check all the properties associated with window. So refresh. Refresh. Let's check. You can see this is the window object. Okay, you can see alert is attached to it. Charges, blur, a lot of things are attached to it. So we can use window object to get a lot of information. All right, so let's start getting some of those information. I can say dot navigation, window dot location. What else can we get? Window dot screen. Window dot documents. Window dot inner height. Inner width. Outer height. All right, maybe we can just stop here. Let us stop here. So if there's another thing, we're going to include that. So come here, refresh. So you can see window dot navigation. See the information about the navigation. Index. So you can do that on your own. Window dot location. You can see index.html, href, the origin file, protocol host, the screen, available width, available height. If I reduce or increase this, and I refresh, it's going to change. You can see this is 1,440, 1,444, Let me reduce the width now and refresh. At the height rather. You can see the height has changed 268, 268. Let me increase it again. Why is this thing moving like this? Refresh. Now it has increased. The height has increased to 373, 373. Let me reduce the width here. From 1440, it has changed to 768. 768. So history, the documents, that's the dictation. Very simple. Uh, I can also do something. Let me quickly show you what you can do here. Can I'm trying to remember. There is some window dot. Trying to remember what I used to do. Is it location? Okay. Window dot location dot href. Refresh. What you can see is going to redirect you to this page. Windows dot location. Or if I do something like this, go.com. See what is going to happen. Go back, refresh. Oops, what happened? All right. Uh, let's do something. Let's say greenybeach.com. Why is it not redirect? There's one I used to do. Okay, www dot. So let's do it again. Refresh. Oh, this is not reliable. So refresh. Oh, I was. It was another page I went to. I was surprised. Let me copy the path again. Copy path. When I come here, it's going to redirect to Bunny Beach. Okay? So it's redirected to bunnybeach.com. So go back. So let me comment this out. So I'll go back to where we are. There's still one I'm trying to remember. Let's look at this. Okay, window dot location. There's location dot reload. It's going to reload the current page. But that's not done to do. Window dot location dot assign. So it's going to redirect to this page. All right, so it's going to redirect to Bunny Beach. All right, so you can use window dot location href dot assign. Most times I don't. I use assign. So I use assign. All right. You can replace URL, but not doing that. Whew. I think that's all I've got for you. Let me copy the part again. All right. So now that you can just check out this on your own. So window pop-ups, we've been using alert before. I've shown you confirm before. I've shown you come before. And if you want to see how they work, you can just copy this, check them, and that's fine. So the next thing is we are going to look at timing functions. We'll look at set timeout and set interval. Was it set timeout? I don't want it to redirect. I don't want to start copying link up and down. I'll just use alert. So set timeout. This, just look at the structure of this. What we have here is a function. The first parameter is a function. The second parameter is the time, which is in seconds. The time is in seconds. Okay, so 5,000 means what? 5 seconds. I said in seconds, in milliseconds rather. It's in milliseconds. So what you do, you want to get 5 seconds, the 5,000 divided by 1,000. That will give you 5 seconds. If I want 1 second, I will change this 5, I'll change it to 1. It becomes 1 second. So I want to use 5 seconds. That's why it's 5,000. If you want to use a minute, you know what to do. All right. That will be 1,000 times 60 seconds. All right. So let's refresh. Isn't it okay? That's 5 seconds. Let's count it again. I'll refresh and count. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm too slow. Let's refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 seconds. This alert will appear after 5 seconds. Then I can rewrite this to make it more beautiful or make it better. Just do this. I'll just say notify. Then I'm going to create a function called notify. So function notify. Okay, so it still works same way. Set timeout after 5 seconds. Boom. After 5 seconds. That's how set timer works. So you can put any function here and it works. Then you can play around with the timing function. Ooh. Set timeout. We have another one, set interval. So for the set interval, it's going to call it every 5 seconds. So let me comment this out so it doesn't disturb it. I'll comment this out. So set interval is going to call this function every 5 seconds. So refresh. Boom. If I close it without refreshing, without refreshing this page, it's going to come back again after 5 seconds. Okay, because I didn't close it on time. So the 5 seconds overlapped. Another 5 seconds. I close it, it's still counting like that. It's counting. Another 5 seconds. It comes again. Okay, so that's the difference. Set timeout, we only call the function once. Set interval, we call the function every 5 seconds. So you can adjust the time depending on what you want, right? So let me just comment this out so it doesn't disturb our work. So I'll refresh now. All right. So that is that. Okay, so that's the end of this class. Thank you. The next class is event listening.